Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 2 2018 NFL predictions. Well, for the first opening weekend of NFL action, the Fanatic had I would say, below average week in picking general both the both straight up and against the spread in all the games that have been played so far. With the two games tonight with the Jets, Lions, and Rams and Raiders, I'm taking both the Rams and Lions, both against the spread and straight up with their numbers. Last time I checked, they are both now up to, I believe, 6.5 to 7 still, and I believe the Rams one is still at about 5. So those are the numbers I'm sticking with still right now, and I will add those two games into my overall record when they are done this week. But so far this week against the spread, the Fanatic did a poor job, if you will. I've gone 5-8-1 against the spread, and straight up I've gone 7-6-1. With that, those equal out to 38.4% against the spread, and straight up I went 7-6-1, which equals 53.8% straight up. Not a great week to start out with, trying not to get to that 10-win threshold straight up. But thanks to the first high since 1971 and the first high in the first game of overtime since then, I will not be able to get to that 10-win threshold, and I never know, just like everybody else who's around that range, nobody will ever know, will because of the 21-21 tie between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cleveland Browns. The Pittsburgh Steelers dropped an 80-game consecutive streak of winning games up by 14 points going into the fourth quarter at that point, and this was also the first time for Cleveland not losing a game since Week 16 of the 2016 season. So, and I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Le'Veon Bell wasn't there. And that was bad. Well, yes, it was. Ben Roethlisberger had a horrible game. He committed 5 turnovers, and James Conner fumbled the football. However, James Conner had also 195 yards from scrimmage and did a very good job in proving that he is an adequate running back. And I just want to point out to people that in the last 18 games at Le'Veon Bell over the last 4 years, the Steelers actually have a decent record at 12-5-1. So there's that. But I know for Steelers fans, it's a dark day. That tie will probably bite them in the rear end. And for the Browns, look, they're ecstatic. They are not starting the season out 0-1, and that is something to build positively off of. Let's see, a few other observations. I want to say for my own team, the Baltimore Ravens, we look like the Alabama Crimson Tide yesterday against the Buffalo Bills. We beat them 47-3. Nathan Peterman went only 5 of 18 for 96 yards and had 2 more interceptions. That means in his 2 road starts that he's had, or in his 2 road starts, he's thrown 7 picks and no touchdowns. It was so bad they brought in Josh Allen to stop the bleeding, and they should stick with Josh Allen because there's no way that Josh Allen can't be worse than Nathan Peterman. I want to apologize to everybody, and especially all the Raven fans. I took the Bills +7 because I had underconfidence in the offense. Well, the offense showed up, putting up one of its highest point totals in an opening game in a while. Joe Flacco looked incredibly efficient. He looked like the old Joe Flacco that we knew from 2008, 2012, somebody that can put up quality enough numbers. The receiving core was spread and consistent, and we were good there. Let's see, the Saints and Bucks. The Saints turned back into the Pumpkin Saints. They were the, New Orleans Princes, and then they turned back into Pumpkins when they gave up 48 points to the Ryan Fitzpatrick-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's also the most points in an opening game in NFL history with 88 points. And to me, that is a concern. The Saints have dropped now 5 straight opening games, which I think is their longest streak, and they have gone 0-2 in the last 5 years. And that would be a huge problem for the Saints because their next game this weekend is against the Cleveland Browns. So if they drop again, even though in 2014 this same scenario happened, it could very well be possible they could start 0-2 again. And maybe they'll get it turned around in week 3 like they did last year. Maybe not. We'll see. But I just wanted to point that out. And finally, I want to congratulate the Bears and Packers for a very great game. It was a testament to how the Bears are a much more improved team offensively. Khalil Mack having 2 sacks, 2 turnovers, and a touchdown in his first game. In that first half, he was unbelievable and unstoppable. But then Aaron Rodgers proved how great he was by overcoming a 20-3 deficit in the fourth quarter and throwing about 290 yards and 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in the second half to win the game 24-23 and still prove the Packers are the standard bearer of the NFC North in terms of competition. So there was that. All right, so time for my picks and thoughts on each game, and I will promise you guys this week I will not skip over the one game like with the Saints Tampa Bay game like I did last week. So I will make sure to put in every game in this video. All right, so Thursday, when the 1-0 Baltimore Ravens go to the 1-0 Cincinnati Bengals at Paul Brown Stadium for the first place of AFC North on the line. The Baltimore Ravens are 1.5-point favorites in this game. I like Baltimore here -1.5 and Baltimore straight up. And then on Sunday, when the 1-0 Carolina Panthers go to the 0-1 Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I like Carolina here +4.5, but I'm going to take Atlanta straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Los Angeles Chargers go to the 0-1 Buffalo Bills, the LA Chargers are 7.5-point favorites in this game. I like the LA Chargers here -7.5, and the LA Chargers straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-0 Minnesota Vikings go to the 1-0 Green Bay Packers, the Green Bay Packers are 1.5-point favorites in this game. I like Green Bay here -1.5, and Green Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Houston Texans go to the 0-1 Tennessee Titans, the Houston Texans-Tennessee Titans game does not have a spread so far, so it is a pick'em game, and I am taking the Houston Texans against the spread and straight up in this instance to beat the Tennessee Titans. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Cleveland Browns go to the 0-1 New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Saints are 8-point favorites in this game. I like Cleveland here +8, but I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-0 Miami Dolphins go to the New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins are 1.5-point favorites in this game. I like Miami here -1.5, and Miami straight up. Next game, when the 1-0 Kansas City Chiefs go to the 0-1 Pittsburgh Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 5-point favorites in this game. I like Kansas City here +5, and Kansas City straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-0 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 1-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Philadelphia Eagles are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Philadelphia here -3, and Philadelphia straight up. And then the next game, when the 0-1 Indianapolis Colts go to the 1-0 Washington Redskins, the Washington Redskins are 5-point favorites in this game. I like Indianapolis here +5, but Washington straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Arizona Cardinals go to the Los Angeles Rams, the Los Angeles Rams are 10-point favorites in this game. I like the LA Rams here -10, and the LA Rams straight up. Then the next game, when the Detroit Lions go to the 0-1 San Francisco 49ers, the San Francisco 49ers are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Detroit here +3, and Detroit straight up. Then the next game, when the Oakland Raiders go to the 1-0 Denver Broncos, the Denver Broncos are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I like Denver here -4.5, and Denver straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-0 New England Patriots go to the 1-0 Jacksonville Jaguars, the New England Patriots are 2-point favorites in this game. I like New England here -2, and New England straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 New York Giants go to the 0-1 Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants are 3.5-point underdogs in this game. I like the New York Giants here +3.5, and the New York Giants straight up. And then in the Monday night game, when the 0-1 Seattle Seahawks go to Soldier Field to take on the 0-1 Chicago Bears, the Chicago Bears are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Chicago here -3, and Chicago straight up. All right, so time for my thoughts on each game. Ravens at Bengals. This is a game that is very interesting in the AFC North due to the fact that we will figure out definitively who will be in first place of the division. It's a weird spot to be in because usually it's the Steelers being the ones either at the top or tied at the top. I looked at the Ravens game from beginning to end. We were dominating from the beginning. It wasn't even a contest. Nathan Peterman had another horrible showing. Joe Flacco, I think, and the offense was the most impressive takeaway. Michael Crabtree, Willie Snead, John Brown, Nick Boyle, and even Alex Collins they all had a solid game, and it looked like a fundamentally consistent offense with a very good defense that we had last year. We almost recorded our 4th shutout in the last 2 years, which would have been impressive, but they kicked a field goal at the part of the game, so in garbage time, so that really didn't matter. And I was just really impressed with how the tempo was, how consistent Flacco was, and the pace of the defense, just getting pressure, getting hits, getting interceptions, and causing a great amount of havoc to make the game so lopsided. Though, it is Buffalo, who is proven now to be, in my opinion, the worst team in the NFL. So you could take some of that with a grain of salt, but I thought the Ravens did a very good job overall. And even with the Bengals, that, throughout most of the game against Indianapolis was the better team. Andy Dalton had that horrible pick in about the beginning of the game. They also got one of their safeties, I believe Sean Williams, ejected for a helmet-to-helmet hit, which was big. But their backup safety did a pretty good job. And then as the game went on, the Bengals offense was able to move the football pretty well. Joe Mixon got his first rushing touchdown, I believe. And John Ross scored his first touchdown. And then Andy Dalton was looking efficient. He threw another big touchdown to A.J. Green. And the Bengals, overall, with their defense at the end of the game, were able to stifle Andrew Luck enough that even, when Luck was driving down the field, once they got to the 15, Jack Doyle fumbled, and number 42 returned it back for the game-winning touchdown. So, the Bengals had a pretty solid overall performance. And they showed some grit by coming back from the way they did from Indy. But the reason why I'm taking Baltimore here is because I trust Baltimore's defense. I think, look, A.J. Green and the Bengals have haunted us over the last few years, and you can just even go back to last year, Week 17, the Titanic music playing, and we let Tyler Boyd run 30 yards in the end zone, and the Bengals knock us out of the playoffs. I remember I said last week that, the Ravens were going to take it out on the Bills for taking the playoff spot. We're now going to take it back out on the Bengals in their home turf to prove a point that we're still angry that you beat us last year in that point. I think the game will be competitive. It's a Ravens-Bengals game. Both defenses still have a good amount of talent. The running games are kind of equal in terms of the depth and the way they use them. I think the Bengals have a little bit of edge at tight end. They definitely have an edge in terms of big play receiver, but we have more depth. And I just feel like, again, Joe Flacco taking that confidence, using Lamar Jackson as a weapon, just seeing how the offense flowed, I feel like we can put up enough points again to put up another solid game. Because this was the best I've seen Joe Flacco play. And if Joe Flacco is on his game, he can outplay Andy Dalton most times. And I feel like we'll be able to take advantage of that this Thursday and win the game in a pretty tight one. And the reason why I'm taking the Ravens against the spread, it's 1.5 points. So it's a pretty low spread to take with a confident Raven team coming off a short week, playing with something more and just looking more complete and consistent compared to the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's why I like Baltimore here minus 1.5 and Baltimore straight up. The next game, the Falcons over Carolina. This one to me is really tough because Carolina, you played a Dallas team with no Dez, no Witten, no Rico Gathers, no Travis Frederick, a banged up Zach Martin. Randy Gregory left the game. And the Panthers only could put up 16 points. The Panthers defense did its job. Ezekiel only had 69 yards rushing. Dak Prescott only had about 170 yards passing. But the Panthers offense could not score. Cam Newton only had about, I believe, 160 passing yards, another 50 rushing yards, and he scored his one touchdown through the ground. And, that's one of those moments where I feel like with Carolina that, the offense is still kind of struggling. But that's kind of how great that defense is. They can, collectively put the Panthers in good enough positions with their offense to score enough points to win. And that's what they did. But here's why I have a huge problem with this game is because of Atlanta. Atlanta, with even Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, they only put up 12 points. And they went they had 5 drives in the red zone, and they went 1 for 5 at that point. They had the last 7 plays in the red zone. They went 1 for 7. Julio Jones, over the last 2 years of Matt Ryan, 1 for 20. And the Falcons are basically proving the old Belichick adage of that they can move 80 yards down the field just like that. But once you get to the red zone, once you get to the money area, they can't cash in on any of those opportunities, which is absolutely amazing. And this is the problem I have with this game because I feel like with Atlanta, they have much more offensive talent compared to Carolina. And Carolina's dealing with injuries with Darrell Williams going back down again, and Greg Olsen left the game. And I think that is the biggest reason why I'm taking Atlanta, is that even with Atlanta's offensive struggles, they just have so much talent that I don't think that Carolina's secondary can hold up. I don't think Bradbury and Coleman and all those guys, they can hold up against this offense, but we'll see. Because it's Sarkisian. He could surprise you. The last time they played in there, it was a 19-10 game. And then the time they played before, it was like a 20-10 game, which is amazing knowing how much the Falcons have offensively. And just with the Panthers' injuries, even though Luke Kuechly should be fine, that's for the defense, but that's the biggest reason why I'm taking the Falcons to win this game. I just feel like the Panthers are too hobbled and too banged up, and I feel like with the home field advantage and knowing what everything going on, I feel like Atlanta, they'll put up more than 8 points. They could put up 20, 23 points, and that should be enough to win this game against the Panther team that, even with a bad opponent, couldn't really put them away. Yeah, like this is a game that, if Carolina wins, I'm not going to be that surprised. I'm not. But it's too low scoring, and these offenses did so little for me against Atlanta. Maybe Atlanta has a better excuse because of Philadelphia. Carolina did so meek against the Cowboys that I can't take them to win, but I'll take the Panthers plus 4.5 just because I don't know how bad Atlanta's going to be. They could keep that close of a game just because they both can't score that effectively, or they didn't show that in week 1. So that's why I'm taking Carolina plus 4.5, but Atlanta straight up. Next game, and one of my locks of the week, one of my 3 locks of the week, Chargers over Bills. Look, the Chargers defense, they missed Joey Bosa. That was very evident. They really couldn't get that much of a pass rush or much of an effective one. I think they got to Mahomes twice. But Patrick Mahomes was just throwing it around the field. He had 256 yards, a little over 50% completion percentage, 4 TDs, no interceptions, and the Charger defense gave up 38 points. The Chargers tried their best, but they only could put up 28. And that's kind of the problem I have with the Chargers, that after one game, you saw what the Chiefs have, and even with all that turnover, with no Peters, no Berry, no Tamba, no Derek Johnson, they brought in like Kendall Fuller, and all this turnover, they still can win games in a good rate. And even without Daniel Sorensen, one of their guys, and Travis Kelce only had 1 reception for 6 yards in the entire game. So that was pretty surprising there as well, that they could put up 38 points with their best offensive weapon not even really contributing. But with that being said, they are playing the Bills. They get to go to Buffalo, and they get to probably reenact the scene of the crime of the infamous Nathan Peterman debut game. And honestly, if I'm Sean McDermott, I start Josh Allen. And Josh Allen, from what I saw in the game against Cincinnati, he's not worse than Nathan Peterman, but he might not be that much better. And just seeing how inept that Bills offense was, knowing what the Chargers have, knowing how angry they are, they're probably going to take it out on the Bills in about just as equal way as the Ravens took it out on the Bills. The Bills secondary was getting shredded by Crabtree and Brown. They have Keenan Allen. They have Antonio Gates, even though I know he's like 38 years old. That's a big thing. They have Tyrell Williams. They have Mike Williams. They have Melvin Gordon. This is just a much more complete team. And the Bills just look so epically bad that the Chargers should be able to kind of relax a little bit, be able to play a nice, solid game to get some of their confidence back up, and still say that they can be a competitive team in the AFC West. I think for the Bills at this point, their main focus is just trying to be competitive. From what I saw, they didn't even look like a professional football team, and they may possibly, depending on how they play, depending on how Allen plays, they could be an 0-16 football team. That's how bad they look. That's how ineffective they were. They have some decent defensive players on that team, like the Jerry Hughes, like the Kyle Williams, like the Starlo Tuileles. But I'm taking the Chargers here. Too much of a complete team for me. And the Bills were just so bad, I just can't go against them. I can't trust that Josh Allen in his first start or Nathan Peterman in his second of 4 starts is going to, or in his second of 4 starts, be able to pull this game out any chance. So that's why I like the LA Chargers here, -7.5, and the LA Chargers straight up. The next game, Green Bay over the Vikings. I watched that Vikings-Niners game. The Vikings team was very impressive. The defense was exceptional. They caused 3 turnovers on Jimmy Garoppolo. They had 3 picks, and they also had Alfred Morris fumble at the 1-yard line, which for my against the spread pick last week. That fumble, and then George Kittle missing a 50-yard completion, maybe were the reasons why I lost that game, and I could have maybe got the cover from the Niners that way. But the Vikings defense looked exceptional. Dalvin Cook looked a bit rusty. He didn't, I thought he would have a little bit more yards in his first game. But the Niners defense, not that bad. And the Vikings offensive line was going through some injuries themselves. And Kirk Cousins, a guy that I've told everybody here before, I'm not the biggest fan of. He played a good game. 20 of 36, 244, 2 TDs, no interceptions. Nothing outstanding, but nothing horrible. And that's exactly what they needed and enough to win the game. And I know what you're saying. It's like, well, look, Matt, if you look at the teams, the Vikings have a much more complete team. They have the pass rush that the Packers didn't have. If Aaron Rodgers couldn't get around Khalil Mack, what about Everson Griffin, Danielle Hunter, Eric Kendricks, Linval Joseph? Like, he'll have a horrible time against that. And also he remembers Anthony Barr last year injuring his shoulder in Green Bay. But here is the difference with that. The Packers defense in that second half looked much more improved. Remember, they only gave up 3 more points, or they only gave up 6 points after that in that second half when they gave up 17. I think that Packers defense can do enough to hold on, and if that Packers offensive line or Rodgers can get a little more healthy with that leg, and that line can hold up like it did in the second half with that fast-paced no-huddle offense, I believe the Packers should be able to win this game because I'm going to go once again, especially with like Aaron Rodgers and the elite quarterbacks, I'm going to take the quarterback over the team. This could be really hard for the Packers, because Khalil Mack, Trevathan, Roquan, the entire Bears defense was getting after Aaron Rodgers and making mistakes happen to both him and Kaiser, and Rodgers is gimpy due to that leg injury he suffered in the game. But if he can look like that against the Bears for a half at home, he can definitely do that with some more mending health against the Minnesota Vikings. I would not be surprised if the Vikings won this game just because, like I said, the team aspect, and Aaron Rodgers had a history of struggling much more against Mike Zimmer's teams than the other way around. But I'm going to take the Packers here. They're going to use that momentum. It's another home game to prove to the Vikings that if you can get through the Vikings defense and not maybe have receivers drop balls that way or not have the turnovers that the Niners have, you can put enough pressure on Cousins that he'll fold, and then Rodgers will come through again and win another game. So that's all I like Green Bay here, -1.5, and Green Bay straight up. The next game, the Texans over Tennessee. This one, to me, is just about the injuries the Titans suffered. The Titans suffered a lot of injuries yesterday. Marcus Mariota had an elbow injury, was out. Taylor Lewan, the highest paid left tackle in football, concussion, out for the rest of the game. They had Harold Landry didn't play. They had Rashaan Evans didn't play. They had Delaney Walker break his ankle, and he's now out for the year. This Titans team is they are the walking wounded. That white bread that I hauled the Titans, and shout out to Keith Bailey, by the way. Sorry, buddy. Team's going through that. That white toast that I called the Titans, that white toast is starting to become moldy. It's starting to become moldy. It's starting to become rotten, and it's going to be a rough time for the Titans over the next few weeks, especially with Conklin on the pup or Conklin on the mend as well. And even though, you could say, well, Mariota, wasn't that good anyway before the elbow injury. He threw that pick to Rashad just on his own. I think the Texans, honestly, they didn't look that much better offensively. Deshaun Watson only went 17 of 34, but 190 yards, no TDs and interception. Lamar Miller had a decent game, 96 yards and 20 carries. And really, it was the Texans' defense that made enough big plays to keep the Pats within the game, or to keep the Texans within the game that way. So both these teams were very underwhelming against their competition. But I am going to take the Texans here because they're a healthier squad. Like, I look at the Titans. If you got Conklin on, Conklin's still going to be out. Delaney Walker's not gone for the year. You don't know if their linebackers are coming back. Blaine Gabbert may be starting. And at least with Deshaun Watson, the last time he played the Titans, he put up 57 points on them. I don't think he'll put up 57 against this type of defense because I think the defense is still the best thing about it. But I'm going to take the Texans here because I feel like, again, the Texans have more of a complete team. They're healthier. And I just think with the Texans, they have enough explosive weapons. The one thing the Titans don't have on offense. And of all the defenders still maintaining their health, I think that's the big reason, why that defense will be more effective against a weakened or at least hampered offensive line and a very weakened receiving core with their best receiver now being out for the year. It's going to be an interesting game. Maybe the Texans, they kind of have a rough spell themselves. Who knows? But I'm taking the Texans here because I think they're healthier, they're more equipped, they're more talented, and I just think for the Titans it's going to be a long year, and especially with the injuries they have, I don't think they're going to be able to overcome them against this Texan team that has a lot more potential. So that's why I like Houston against the spread and a pick 'em, and Houston straight up. Next game, New Orleans over the Browns. The Browns, the reason why I did not take them is because they tied. Only in Cleveland could the Cleveland Browns end their losing streak on a tie. And it was a weird game. Tyrod Taylor only went 15 of 40 for about 150 yards. Like, Tyrod Taylor did not have that great of a game. I thought Carlos Hyde had Carlos Hyde and Nick Chubb had a pretty solid game. But it was the Cleveland Browns defense that was the big holders here. Denzel Ward has, 2 career interceptions in his first game against Big Ben Roethlisberger. What a great feeling for the Ohio State kid. Beat up the Miami of Ohio kid and Big Ben. That way, Myles Garrett had a sack or 2, which I thought was pretty impressive. Joe Shorbert, one of my favorite linebackers on the team, was pretty solid. And the Browns just, kind of hung in there. But at the end of the day, they didn't win. I know Browns fans are happy. You didn't lose either. But you didn't win. And with that, you're playing a Saints team that's angry. In their first game, they allowed Ryan Fitzpatrick to turn into Ryan Fitzmagic. He had a 400-yard game with 5 total touchdowns, and he had one of his best career games, and he outplayed and outshot Drew Brees in a shootout, which is unbelievable to say that. And the Saints defense was that bad. They gave up 48 points. And as somebody that took the Saints defense in fantasy, I horribly regret that decision already. And that's the thing is that, if the Cleveland Browns would have won the game, I might have actually taken Cleveland to win this game. Because I thought Cleveland was going to have so much momentum. They were going to be on a huge high. They were going to get to play New Orleans with no pressure on them. But no, they still are trying to find a win. They've gone 17 straight games now without winning a game. And I think the Saints, they're going to be motivated. They're not playing the offensive talent arrangement that Tampa has, totally. And also, I just don't think, the Saints, they have enough pride, enough talent. They're not going to let Tyrod Taylor do what Ryan Fitzpatrick did. I know what you're saying. Tyrod's a better quarterback. You got Josh, you got Jarvis. They killed him with Mike. They killed him with Deshaun. There's your combo there. We have Njoku at tight end. And, they coughed it up. Yeah, the Saints defense is horrible. But, who knows what could have happened throughout the week to cause that. But I'm just, but I feel like, again, the Saints will improve their defense. I don't know if they're going to, go back to the, old school, or last year's Saints and only give up, 10 points. However, I do see with the Saints that they should be able to improve enough on defense to be able to beat this Cleveland team. But I'm taking Cleveland here +8 because with what the Browns have offensively, this could turn into another shootout. Because if Ryan Fitzpatrick could do it, so can Tyrod Taylor with the weapons he has and the line he has. It's a really interesting game because of what happened. With the Saints losing to Tampa, it opened the door for Browns fans with the tie to maybe have some hope that they could pull off the upset here and beat the Saints for the second time in 4 years in the second game of the season. So that's why I like Cleveland here +8 and New Orleans straight up. Next game, the Dolphins over the Jets. I have to tell you, the Dolphins were pretty good. The Dolphins, they played a Titan team. You could say, yeah, they played the walking wounded. They knocked a lot of their guys out. But the Dolphins played a solid game. Ryan Tannehill looked, like Ryan Tannehill, an efficient, good quarterback. And if you give him, good defensive help, if his receivers can make big plays, if he can have an okay running game, he can win you a good amount of games against decent teams. And, that's the thing with the Dolphins, that with the Jets, I don't know. If the Jets go out, right, and play exceptional, or they beat the Lions from pillar to post, or they just beat the Lions, I might regret that pick. But I don't expect that to happen. Sam Darnold's a guy I'm rooting for, but it's his first game. He's playing a team that is a pretty consistent team. And if the Dolphins can kind of hold on with Tannehill's ability and Gase's coaching, I think if Sam Darnold and the Jets play like I think they can, I think the Dolphins should be able to eke a victory out. And also the Dolphins are motivated because last year, with Josh McCown as their starting quarterback, they ended up beating the Dolphins 20-6 in New York. So I know the Dolphins are motivated to try to get revenge there. Though you could say, well, they got the revenge later when the Jets blew that huge lead and the Dolphins won 31-28. But I'm taking the Miami Dolphins here because I trust Tannehill and that offense enough. Seeing it with Adam Gase, seeing Tannehill look as effective as he did, I think he'll be able to pull out a close win over a division rival that are both about equal. This is like my competitive toss-up game of the week. It's both evenly matched. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets won, but I'm going to take the Dolphins here. We're going to take the experience. I'm going to take the week 1 game they had, and I feel like, and I'm just going to say they can duplicate that kind of game against the Jets on Sunday at the Meadowlands. So that's why I like Miami here -1.5 and Miami straight up. The next game, Kansas City over the Steelers. This is the Le'Veon Bell game, ladies and gentlemen. Le'Veon Bell, the last 2 times the Chiefs have played Pittsburgh, has been their downfall. He is not there, and I saw the Chiefs play a very good Charger team, even though with some injuries, and they put up 38 points. Tyreek Hill, in the first 7 minutes, had 2 50-plus yard touchdowns. He's had the most 50-plus yard touchdowns in the NFL since he's been in the league by a wide margin. That guy is an incredibly explosive player, incredibly dynamic. I also feel like with the Chiefs, you saw a solid running game. You saw Spencer Ware and Kareem Hunt get involved. You saw a bunch of different assets work together, and you saw a Chiefs defense that even with Eric Berry not there, they can play efficiently enough. And even though the Chiefs couldn't get a turnover or couldn't get an interception, the Steelers just committed 6 turnovers to the Browns. And the Chiefs defense last year was one of their biggest problems. They really couldn't get that many turnovers in a lot of games. So if you take that momentum minus Le'Veon going into this game, the Chiefs should be able to finally pull a victory out because their bell cow wasn't it. If James Conner can play like he did against Cleveland, that'll be a huge problem for Kansas City, and maybe they'll be able to pull out a victory. But watching that tie without Le'Veon there, and I don't expect Le'Veon Bell back this week, I have to take the Chiefs here because I believe in the Chiefs to be a solid, consistent, fundamental team enough to pull out this win in a competitive in a competitive game that can very much booster the Chiefs and deflate the Steelers into a we need Le'Veon situation. Let's just get him here now. We'll work on something over the offseason. We'll give him as much as he wants if that happens. So that's why Kansas City are +5 and Kansas City straight up. Next game, the Eagles over the Buccaneers. The Philadelphia Eagles just continue to find ways to win games. Nick Foles is now 6-1 under Doug Peterson, and it's just weird how the Eagles are just finding ways to pull feathers out of their rear ends and get victories. Because that's exactly what happened. They had a carbon copy game from the 2017 NFL divisional round, and they pulled it out. So, with this game, I think it's been much more has been heightened due to the Ryan Fitzpatrick, week 1 performance. because now people are saying, hey, Ryan Fitzpatrick has no pressure on him. He's just enjoying playing the game. You may take, Ryan Fitzpatrick, to win the game if Nick Foles plays like he did. Yeah, but that's the thing about Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a guy that if you put no expectations on him, and maybe that's the thing, maybe people still don't have expectations. He's not going, he'll do these type of things. Or he'll look like, Tom Brady, Ryan Fitzmagic, whatever you want. But he doesn't do it often. And you know what? The Saints defense, they've had a history over the last, little while of having issues defensively. The Eagles defense over the last over the last 2 seasons, they haven't had a problem defensively getting at the quarterback, making turnovers and limiting points. And I just believe, look, if they can beat Atlanta, I know Tampa's offense is somewhat similar. Basically, Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Deshaun Jackson, Calvin Ridley, Sanu, and Humphreys, the tight ends, big tight ends, the offensive lines, and pretty solid defenses. But just to be fair, the Bucs also gave up 40 points to the Saints. I don't think the Eagles are going to put up 40 points, but they can at least put up 21 to 27 points. And I think the Eagles defense will do a much better job holding the Buccaneers offense to be able to win the game. Though if Ryan Fitzpatrick plays well, and he also plays Pittsburgh in the week after, and Le'Veon Bell's not there, if Ryan Fitzpatrick is able to do what Mike Lennon did in 2012, Ryan Fitzpatrick will have won the job from Jameis Winston for the year, and Jameis Winston will now be trying to find his next team, and Dirk Cutter will be trying to find his next quarterback in the next season, but getting enough wins to keep his job, possibly. So that's why I like Philadelphia here, -3, and Philadelphia straight up. The next game, Washington over Indianapolis. This is a game where, how I've said over the last, I said with the Vikings-Packers game, I took the quarterback over the team. I took the quarterback over the team last week with Andrew Luck and the Colts over the Bengals. The team won. And that was the thing. Andrew Luck had a pretty solid game, even though that first interception in the red zone might have been the difference in the game from getting the Colts the victory or not. But he played a pretty good game. But looking at that Colts team and how ineffective they were defensively, they gave up around 34 points. I watched the Washington game. If you want a surprise team out of week one of the more impressive teams, in my opinion, were the Washington Redskins. From beginning to end, a fundamental, consistent game. Alex Smith, 21 of 30, 260 yards, 2 TDs, no interceptions. Adrian Peterson, about 162 yards from scrimmage, about 30 plus touches. And I just was really impressed because from wire to wire, that was a consistent win. And I took the Colts because I believe in the quarterback. After what I saw out of Washington, none of them really had big injuries. They have a pretty solid defense overall with Swearinger and Kerrigan and Ioannidis and Norman. And they have Allen, Jonathan Allen coming back. They have a pretty solid Zach Brown. They have a pretty solid defense that I feel like they should be able to win this game in a battle that really should have been between RG3 and Andrew Luck. You want my honest opinion, but it's not. It's between Andrew Luck and Alex Smith. And I'm just going to take the team in this instance, especially with a road game with them going to Washington. I'll take the home team with the more credible team around him than the quarterback this time because I feel like Washington has just as good, if not a better team framework than the Bengals do. So that's why I like Washington here straight up, but I'm going to take Indianapolis here +5 because I believe in Andrew Luck that he can make the game within a score just on his own. So that's why I like Indianapolis here +5 and Washington straight up. Next game, the Rams over Arizona. This is a game that I don't really have any faith in Arizona. I don't. I saw Sam Bradford play. Sam Bradford sucks, everybody. Okay? Anybody that's a Sam Bradford supporter, please tell me, why do you support the man? Why? He's below average. He only threw for 153 yards, no TDs, and interception. They only put up 6 points against the Washington defense, and that was with Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, and David Johnson. That was with a defense with Patrick Peterson and Chandler Jones that even though his defense, was getting beat up by their former running back, he only could put up 6 points and looked like an absolute scrub. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get what people see in Sam Bradford. He sucked his whole career, and that's what I saw. And going up against the Rams team, the last time the Rams played the Cardinals, it was a 38-0 shutout. Honestly, I could see the Rams doing it again, even with Sam Bradford. This is something where I love what the Rams have offensively. The Rams last year, even with Carson Palmer, showed with McVay as their offensive mind and defense they had, they could dominate or they could play the Cardinals very well. And I just don't think that, David Johnson will be able to make that much headway, meaning Bradford's going to have to try to, go more in his arm. And that's the best way for the Rams to win this game because that's what I would want to do if I were the LA Rams and tell Sam Bradford to beat us. And knowing Sam Bradford's track record as a 34, 46-1 quarterback, he can't do it. And I would tell everybody this: if Sam Bradford and them get blown out this Sunday against the Rams, you have to maybe consider Rose. If they get blown out by 14, 20 plus points, something like that, I would put Josh Rosen in against Chicago right away. Because there's no point in trying the Sam Bradford experiment anymore, or at least in my eyes. You might say I'm biased, and at least I've openly admitted it, but I've seen Sam Bradford play enough. He's bad. He's garbage. He's one of the top 10 worst number 1 overall quarterbacks I've ever seen. So, we'll see there. But that's why I like the LA Rams here -10, and the LA Rams straight up. Next game, the Lions over the Niners. This is one of those games, just like with the Jets. I saw the Niners in a competitive game for the first time against the Vikings. They were a competitive team, but that team against the more talented team played too bad for me not to, especially with Garoppolo throwing the turnovers. They played too bad for me not to put my faith in the Lions. Would I be surprised if San Francisco won this game? Not at all. Because I feel like with the Lions, this is what the Lions would do. But looking at what the Niners did, they also had Goodwin go down with an injury. They had Nick Coyle, or Brock Coyle, one of their decent linebackers go down. And it was just something where, you put the pressure on Jimmy. He was given this kind of money, and he really couldn't make any throws, outside the numbers and make that many deep balls. And some of that were on his receivers, and some of that was, on him. But I'm going to take the Lions here because it's just kind of like with the Jets. I feel like the Niners and Jets are more closer after watching Week 1 than they were apart. That's the thing. Again, it's not that I have any faith in Detroit long term, but I just have enough faith in Detroit that they'll be able to pull out another kind of Detroit win where it's consistently enough to win, but it's not impressive enough to really, open your eyes to the team. So that's why I like Detroit here +3 and Detroit straight up. Next game, Denver over Oakland. I was a bit saddened, honestly. How huge a Russell Wilson fan I am. They couldn't get it done. Russell Wilson, he had a above average game. The 2 picks were bad, and also I guess he had the 2 fumbles as well. So actually, if you think about it, Russell Wilson had an average game outside the turnovers. But yeah, you look at that Denver team. Case Keenum did enough. I think the Bronco fans need to be concerned. Keenum did throw 3 interceptions against a Seattle secondary without Richard Sherman, without Cam Chancellor, without Brandon Browner, and without Michael Bennett or Clifford. He got 3 turnovers on him. He got picked up by Bradley McDougal and the other guy. But with that being said, with how bad Oakland's defense is looking, I feel like Case Keenum might not have to worry about that as much, about dealing with those kind of players making turnovers. And I just think Denver's offense, if they can put up 27 against Seattle, they can put up about 24 to 30 points against the Raiders. It should be able to win with that defense going up against that offensive line that has Donald Penn moved out of his natural position. They have a first-round pick in Colton Miller starting. And just having Marshawn and that kind of offense, I think that Cooper will, Jones can handle Jordy to a decent extent, and Harris can shut down Cooper, which will make Carr's job really hard, leaving Miller and Chubb to get after him with the pass rush, and the Broncos should be able to win this game. And just like last year, it was a 17-10 game. I feel like Keenum, he's an upgrade over Simeon, and they won this game last year in that kind of fashion. And even with the teams improving, even with the new coaches, I expect the same thing that time as well. So that's why I like Denver -4.5 and Denver straight up. The next game, New England over the Jags. This is just something where I saw the Jags offense, was not impressed. They did enough, and they also got a pick six from I believe Telvin. Got the pick six, basically sealed the game for him. And I saw the Patriots, and it was one of those things that I know Brady, he's going to go up against a tougher defense in Jacksonville, and he had a tough time. He doesn't have Danny and all that. But the Patriots just continue to prove that they can continue to win football games at a very good rate. And I just can't trust Jacksonville, here. I thought, it was Eli, it was Saquon, and Odell, and that was it. And even though Jalen Ramsey gave up 11 receptions for over 100 yards, the Jags ended up winning the football game. So I think at the end of the day, Jalen Ramsey won that argument. And with how that division is, it's really not having to be that horrible to lose to the Pats. Houston already did. Indy's probably not going to do it for themselves. And Tennessee Tennessee will probably lose as well. And I just think with New England that if you look at how they played, it was a pretty overall solid performance. The only thing you could argue is with the fumble of the muff ball and Brady's pick to Matthew were really the only two big issues that I saw really for the game. And it's a 2-point spread. So if you have New England with only 2 points, that's an easy take anytime you can get it. So that's why I like New England here -2 and New England straight up. Next game, the Giants over Dallas. This was something where the Giants, even in defeat, I would say the Giants kind of had a bear look to them. That the Giants, they ended up losing the game. The Giants looked pretty impressive defensively. They pretty much held the Jags offense in check. They even got Leonard Fournette to only take 41 yards, but he went out for the game. And Blake Bortles, had an okay Blake Bortles type game. And the Giants show that their weapons can be effective. If Odell Beckham can do that against Jalen Ramsey, he definitely can do that against Jordan Lewis and Awuzie for Dallas. Also, I feel like the Giants can shut down, Zeke, with their running game. I feel like, Dak putting Jenkins and Apple on their receivers should be a hard enough job for him in the first place. And the Giants are motivated from last year in this game in Dallas, where the Cowboys won by a pretty decisive win because of their offensive line. The offensive line looked better, and they're playing a much weaker pass rush in the Dallas Cowboys compared to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Could the Cowboys surprise you? Sure, because DeMarcus Lawrence had a huge game defensively. Maybe the Giants, can do that and cause some turnovers, and maybe Zeke, with enough line help, can make enough of a hole in the backfield or make enough a hole of a lane to run effectively. I think Zeke's going to need 120, 130 yards for them to have a chance to win this game. But I'm going to take the Giants here because I think the Giants, they look more impressive in defeat, and I trust that defense to shut down that Cowboys offense enough that if the Giants put up 17, 20 points, that could be enough to win the game, which I think they can do against this Dallas defense. So that's why the New York Giants are +3.5 and the New York Giants straight up. And finally, the Monday night game, Chicago over Seattle, -3. This was easy. I took Seattle on the road as a final opportunity to see what Russell Wilson can do. He didn't capitalize. There was a controversial call with a touchdown in the end zone by Demaryius Thomas. And I just couldn't have enough faith in them to do it. And out of what I saw out of the Bears, if they had problems guarding Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, try guarding probably the NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Khalil Mack, with Danny Trevathan, Roquan Smith, and Akeem Hicks. Good luck with that, Russell. I'm hoping, you can stay upright and stay healthy and play somewhat effectively, but I'm taking the Bears here. That Bears team looked much more improved, looked much more balanced, and against the Seattle team that's been horrible on the road over the last several years, going on back-to-back road games, I don't like their chances. Should be an interesting game, though. So that's why I like Chicago here, -3, and Chicago straight up. So that's it. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page as well. See great progs like Geo Knows, Hatbox Nation, Keith Bailey, TJ Harmon, Bridgewater's Finest, Half Moon's Picks, Logan Schiff, all those guys and gals that make picks every week just like I do. See how you match up with them, how you match up with me. And please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page and to interact with all of us and put your 2 cents in to what you believe was your team or certain teams and certain ideas with the game. So that is it. So good luck to all players, coaches, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators this week. And until next time, this is Matt the Fanatic signing off. Till then, so long.